Before we begin, tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? Let's see how far Elena's story travels. And if this story touches your heart, don't forget to like and subscribe. Now, let's begin. America, 1913. The wind was dry and sharp as it swept over the endless fields of Montana. Dust blew across the wooden platform as a train hissed and slowed to a stop. And there, stepping down with one hand clutched around a worn suitcase and the other gripping a folded marriage certificate, was Elena. She was just 24. Not too young, but young enough to still believe in second chances. Back home in Ukraine, her life had been hard. Long days, little food, and a quiet kind of loneliness that settled deep in the bones. So when she answered a newspaper ad from a widowed farmer in America, she didn't see it as desperation. She saw it as hope. A man named Thomas Crowley had written to her for months. His letters were warm, kind, and full of stories about the land he farmed and the 7 children he was raising alone. After his wife passed from pneumonia, he said he just needed help, someone who could cook, clean, care for the little ones, and maybe, with time, love again. In his last letter, he sent her a train ticket. "Come," he wrote, "we'll start a new life together." So she came. She wore her best coat, the one with a missing button, and tied her hair with a ribbon her sister had given her the day she left. She imagined what Thomas would look like, tall, maybe, with kind eyes and callous hands. She imagined the children would be shy at first but warm up with time. But when the train finally stopped in the little town of Dry Hollow, no one was there. No man, no smile, no hand reaching out to help with her bag. Just a broken-down wagon on the edge of the road, and 7 children, standing in a line, staring at her. The youngest was barely more than a toddler. The oldest, a boy of 12, stood tall with his arms crossed, jaw clenched. The others stood in silence. Dirty shoes, torn coats, wide and tired eyes. Not a single one of them spoke. Elena looked around, confused. Her heart beat faster. That's when a gentle voice came from behind her. It was a local pastor, a middle-aged man with gray at his temples and sorrow in his voice. "Are you Miss Elena?" he asked quietly. She nodded. He lowered his gaze. "Thomas passed last week. Fever took him fast. He didn't update his will, but his last words were about you. He hoped you'd come anyway." The words hit her like a slap. She looked at the children, then at the pastor, then back at the train behind her, hissing steam like it was calling her back. She could have turned around, could have left that dusty platform and everything on it. But her feet didn't move. Something in her chest shifted. Quietly, strongly. She didn't even realize she was walking until she stood just a few feet from the children. No one said anything. The toddler clung to the middle sister's skirt. The eldest still scowled. But Elena looked at them, really looked, and whispered in Ukrainian, "It's all right. I'm here now." They didn't understand the words, but somehow they heard the meaning. That night, she moved into the Crowley farmhouse. The house was small, cold. The stove barely worked. The pantry held only a few jars and half a sack of flour. The beds creaked, and the wind howled through the thin walls. And yet, she stayed. She unpacked her clothes, rolled up her sleeves, and got to work. She boiled potatoes. She swept the floors. She found old quilts in the attic and stitched them back together by candlelight. The children watched her like shadows, never speaking, never helping, just watching. She didn't ask for anything. She just kept going. On the 3rd day, the toddler, her name was Lucy, reached for her hand. By the end of the week, the youngest girl began humming along as Elena sang lullaby from her homeland. The eldest, Samuel, didn't budge. He stayed cold, angry, distant. One evening, he snapped, "You don't belong here," he shouted. "You're not our mother." Elena didn't yell. She didn't defend herself. She simply knelt in front of him, wrapped her arms around his shaking frame, and whispered, "I know, but I'm not leaving." He cried. For the first time since his father died, he let it all out. And one by one, so did the rest. Outside, the wind still blew across the plains. The neighbors still whispered. A mail-order bride with no husband? Living with children that aren't hers? It wasn't proper. Some said she was there for the money. Others said she was out of her mind. But Elena didn't hear them. Or maybe she did, and chose to listen to something louder, the quiet needs of 7 grieving children, and the silent voice in her heart that told her she was exactly where she was meant to be. She had come to be a wife. But life had other plans. She had found something else entirely. Not a husband, but a purpose. There was no ceremony, no celebration, no moment when it officially happened. But slowly, day by day, Elena stopped being a stranger and began becoming something else. A mother. At first, everything felt like walking through fog. The farmhouse groaned at night. The children didn't speak much. Elena cooked what little she could find. Boiled oats, potato soup, biscuits when the flour stretched far enough. She would hum softly as she waked, Ukrainian lullabies drifting through the kitchen while little Lucy sat on a stool and watched her knead dough with tired hands. Sometimes Elena cried. Quietly. Alone. At night. She missed her homeland, her sister, the way the air smelled in the springtime back in her village. But she didn't let the sadness stay too long. There were too many little mouths to feed, too many chores to finish, too many soft sobs from the children's bedrooms when they thought no one could hear. The town didn't make it easy. Dry Hollow was a small place, and small places always have big opinions. Some whispered behind her back, "She's not even American." Living with 7 kids and no husband? Disgraceful. Probably came here for an inheritance. But others, the quiet ones, the ones who had known pain, they saw her differently. They watched her patch up old coats, tie braids in the girl's hair, and kneel in the garden with her sleeves rolled up, planting seed with little hands digging beside hays. She didn't shout. She didn't lecture. She just did the work. Samuel, the eldest, was the hardest. 12 years old, and already carrying a world of hurt in his small shoulders. He didn't trust easily. He didn't like to talk. And he didn't like Elena. Or so he said. But Elena saw through the anger. She knew what grief looked like, what fear sounded like behind a raised voice. One evening, she found him behind the barn, clutching his father's old hat and wiping his face with his sleeve. He didn't want her there, but she didn't say anything. She just sat beside him. After a long silence, he whispered, "You'll leave too." Elena shook her head. "I crossed an ocean for this family. I'm not going anywhere." He didn't say anything else. But the next morning, he brought in firewood without being asked. That was how it happened, not all at once, but in pieces. By late spring, the garden began to bloom. Tiny green shoots burst from the earth, and with them, something else bloomed inside the house too. Laughter. The children giggled over dinner. They helped wash dishes. They built a swing from an old tire in the backyard. And at night, Elena told them stories, some in English, some in Ukrainian. They didn't always understand the words, but they understood her. She became the soft voice that soothed nightmares, the firm hand that made sure chores were done, the arms that wrapped around them when their hearts broke in quiet ways they couldn't explain. When school started in the fall, the children walked in with heads held high. Their clothes were patched and clean. Their lunches were full. Their teachers noticed something new, not just in their clothes or homework, but in their eyes. They weren't orphans anymore. They were Elena's children. One Sunday, after church, the pastor pulled Elena aside. "You've done more than anyone expected," he said, eyes kind. Elena just smiled. "They needed someone." "No," he said gently. "They needed you." 2 winters passed. The days were long, the nights longer. But the house was warm now, not just from the wood stove, but from something deeper. Love. And then, one day, a letter came from the county court. A judge had heard about Elena, the woman who had come as a mail-order bride, but stayed as something far greater. She was asked to appear. The children wore their best clothes. Lucy held Elena's hand the whole way. Samuel stood tall beside her, eyes proud and protective. When the judge asked, "Do you wish to adopt these children formally?" Elena's voice was steady. "I already have." The courtroom fell quiet, and then the judge, eyes misty, signed the papers with a slow, deliberate hand. Each child was asked if they wanted to choose a new middle name. They didn't hesitate. Each one chose the same. Elena, not because she asked them to, but because they wanted her to be a part of them, forever. Even little Lucy, still learning to write, scribbled Mama Elnu across a notebook, misspelled and beautiful. The town stopped whispering. There was nothing left to say, because by then, everyone knew the truth. Elena had come to be a wife, but instead, she became something much more. She became a mother, and not by blood, but by choice. Time passed, as it always does. The seasons came and went. Snow fell, flowers bloomed, children grew. And Elena, the woman who stepped off a train with nothing but a suitcase and a folded piece of paper, became something permanent, unshakable, a lighthouse in the middle of every storm. The Crowley farmhouse changed over the years. The broken roof was fixed. The walls got fresh paint. A new garden flourished every spring. But the biggest changes weren't in the house. They were in the children. Samuel, once her clothes off, became strong and gentle, a man of few words but deep love. He worked the farm alongside Elena until he was old enough to manage it on his own. Grace, the oldest girl, studied hard and went on to teach at the local school, a quiet, patient woman who never forgot the lullabies Elena sang at bedtime. James, the shy middle boy, became a doctor. He said he chose that path because he never wanted another family to lose someone the way they lost their father. Lucy, the baby Elena once rocked to sleep on her shoulder, grew into a bright, joyful soul who ran barefoot through fields and wrote poems in the margins of her notebooks. All 7 children, every single one, carried her name in their hearts and in the middle of their own. Elena never remarried. She never sent another letter across the ocean. She never looked for a new life somewhere else, because the life she had was enough. She didn't wear a wedding ring, but she wore something better, the fingerprints of 7 lives she helped shape with her hands, her voice, and her heart. She never called herself mother. But the children never called her anything else. The years went by like pages turning in a book. And then, one winter, the doctor gave her quiet news. She may not make it through the cold season. She was 90 now. Her hands were thin and soft. Her eyesight dimmed. But her heart, her heart was still so full. When her birthday came, the children returned one by one. They came from cities and farms and towns far away. With grandchildren of their own now, they brought gifts, cakes, photographs, laughter. But what Elena treasured most was them, their voices, their hugs, their faces, grown now, but still her babies. They gathered around her in the warm living room. A fire crackled. Snow fell gently outside. They sang songs from her homeland, songs she had taught them long ago, back when the world still felt broken. Ukrainian words mixed with English ones, and laughter spilled into tears. Elena sat in her rocking chair, a blanket over her lap, her hair silver, her eyes glowing. She looked at them all, so tall, so kind, so alive, and then she whispered something, barely louder than the fire. I didn't find a husband. A pause. She smiled. I found my purpose. No one spoke for a moment, and then Lucy, grown now, a mother herself, knelt beside Elena and held her hand. We were the lucky ones, she said softly. You didn't have to stay, but you did. Samuel nodded. You saved us, Mama. That winter, Elena passed peacefully in her sleep. No pain, no fear, just quiet, just love. She was buried beneath a simple stone next to the garden she had planted so many springs ago. The marker read, Elena Crowley, mother by heart, loved by all. And every year, on the first bloom of spring, all 7 children, no matter where they were, came home. They planted something in her garden. They told stories to their children, and they always ended with the same words. She wasn't just a mail-order bride. She wasn't just a woman from another country. She was our mother, and she was everything. Speech balloon before you go. Tell us in the comments, what does family mean to you? Globe showing Americas, and don't forget to let us know where you're watching from. Let's show how love like this can travel the world. Red heart hash if this story touched your heart. Hit that like button. Subscribe for more real, powerful stories like Elena's. Clap aboard, thank you for watching. Until next time, stay kind, stay human, and never underestimate the quiet power of love.